One of the Safe Schools recommendations was for students to create standout groups. These are clubs for LGB, trans and intersex students and their allies.
And so schools run these rainbow clubs, diversity clubs, inclusion clubs, Gay Straight Alliance. It's known by a whole bunch of different names. Parents aren't told if kids go to it. Usually it's a lunchtime activity. Sometimes it's run by a well-meaning teacher, or the wellbeing team within a high school will run these clubs. And so at these clubs, it's basically an indoctrination session into gender ideology. So they'll often start by going around the circle, talking about pronouns, talking about how you identify. So it becomes the main focus of what happens. And of course, once you start going around and talking about pronouns, you're developing the hierarchy within that group, because you can go if you're an ally, but that's pretty boring, isn't it? If you start to adopt an identity, then you become in and part of the crowd. And who, as a teenager, doesn't want to belong?
Pride clubs are student-led, but there's always a teacher helping to facilitate. Victoria has occasionally attended out of curiosity to see what takes place. Sometimes it's wholesome things, like making origami in rainbow colours or watching an episode of Glee. Or they'll hatch a plan to change school policies.
So the kids will get together at Pride Club and then go and tell the teachers not to call girls she. Not to call girls girls. That's what happened in that Pride Club in that particular school that I was working in all those years ago. But the other thing that they'll do is they will be the place where kids meet kids that they would never have met. So I've seen a Year 7 student sitting in a corridor with a student who was maybe in Year 11. So we're talking about a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old, maybe 17. And the 12-year-old was discussing where that child sat on the aromantic, asexual spectrum, and the 17-year-old student was discussing that with them. So these are vectors of knowledge. This is where the kids find out where to go online to find out all this nonsense, and they see someone who is a role model of some kind who is acting out all of these bizarre identities. Those kids wouldn't meet if it wasn't for Pride Club. There is no reason for a Year 11 student to ever speak to a Year 7. Why would they?
For those who don't know, aromantic describes people who have little or no interest in romantic relationships. However, they may or may not experience sexual attraction. So if you struggle to form meaningful relationships, but like to have one-night stands, you're part of the queer crowd now. Asexual originally described people who do not experience sexual attraction at all. But that has now expanded to mean all sorts of things, including that sometimes you might be in the mood for sex and other times not. Asexual people might still enjoy romantic relationships, just without the sex. But other asexuals might enjoy both romantic and sexual relationships. It's a spectrum. So that's just 2 examples of what your kids might learn via Pride Club.